ableism. Like racism and sexism, ableism is a form of discrimination against people. Unlike racism and sexism, ableism is sometimes invisible as it has less to do with hating the disabled, more to the assumptions that are made against people with disabilities of the normal ability status quo. Hi all, my name's Aspie Answers. I'm going to be bringing out to you some series, as I said to you all, if you've been following me, based on ableism. Hopefully you'll enjoy these, and I'll be hoping to break down into 5 parts. You may have seen one already, which I did a little Dear Ableism video. If you haven't done so, I'll link it up above me and below me. In saying this, also for those of you who are new and landed on my page, my name is Aspie Answers. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness videos, as well as advocating and educating you all to do with autism and mental health, taking you all on a journey when I'm able for what life is like for me as an autistic, as well as some fun and games. So if you're into any of these, feel free to smash that subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner and turn on the notification bell. It'll be much appreciated, and you won't hopefully miss any future videos that I post. So very first question you may be asking is, to me, what is ableism? How would I define ableism? To me, from what I researched, Wikipedia defines ableism as discrimination and prejudice against people with disabilities, or who are perceived to have disabilities. Ableism characterizes persons as defined by their disabilities and are usually inferior to the non-disabled. On the basis people are assigned or denied certain perceived abilities of what they can do, of the skill sets they may have, or character orientations in this case. There are stereotypes, generally inaccurate, however, associated with either disability in general or with specific disabilities. But obviously ableism is invisible, and it's obviously not just for the people with disabilities, it's people with mental health issues as well. Just to clarify, so that we can get into this. These stereotypes in turn serve as a justification for ableist practices and reinforce discriminatory attitudes and behaviours toward people who are disabled. Labelling affects people when it limits their options for action or changes their identity. In ableist societies, however, people with disabilities are viewed as less valuable, or even more so, less human. The eugenics movement of the earlier 20th century would be considered as an example of the widespread ableism. Racism, sexism, and many other forms of discrimination are in the news fairly often, but as you know, as I said, when you hear it, you'll hear it on the TV, or you'll hear it on the radio, or see it on the TV. As a developing society more than ever today, though, people tend to look at forms of discrimination as problems. However, this is particularly true if the discrimination is institutionalized through the government. This is a sociological term when a concept or idea becomes intertwined with the government, society, or other institutions. This form of discrimination I'm talking about today isn't forever discussed in the media as much, so here I am to raise some awareness and understanding based on this for you guys. Ableism can take up the form of institutionalized discrimination or personal prejudice, and can hinder the lives of disabled people with mental health issues. One classic example I'm going to share with you is some government buildings that are inaccessible for people with disabilities or mobility problems that represent institutionalized ableism. Ableism is also the practices and dominant attitudes in society that devalues and limits the potential of persons with disabilities, a set of practices and beliefs that assign inferior value or the worth of a person that are disabled to people who have developmental, emotional, physical, or psychiatric disabilities. To say ableism, however, is a set of assumptions, conscious or unconscious, and practices that promote the differential or unequal treatment of people because of their actual or presumed disabilities that they may have or present. People who don't have a disability or aren't close to someone who does might not forever understand how the world is wild for non-disabled people. It may be invisible to those who do not have disabilities. It's sometimes not intentional, but in certain circumstances it's very intentional. An ableist society is said to be one that treats non-disabled individuals as the standard of normal living, which results in public and private places and services, education and social work that are built to serve standard people, thereby inherently excluding those with various disabilities. Persons with disabilities face many kinds of barriers on a daily basis. These can be physical, attitudinal, or systematic. So ableism is a complex issue, is my next subject line for this. So you may be wondering if ableism seems pretty straightforward, right? Wrong. Well, not exactly, as this is very complex. The word we are looking for here is ableist. That has classically been thrown about, obviously, in the autistic groups that I've been hearing about, of the word ableist. This is because it's a way of looking at the world as if everybody had more or less functional bodies and mindsets. these able-bodied individuals becomes the norm, however. When someone who isn't able to engage in certain activities, however, comes along, someone that is disabled that is, he or she can feel as if the world has left them out, and that this can lead to the word of exclusion. Exclusion to the point of maybe not being able to socialise with their peers, exclusion to the point that they'll not be able to communicate to any of us whatsoever. Notice that these are the set of assumption of what is considered to be the norm, or to be normal, rather than an outrighted hatred of the group of people like racial or ethnic groups that you hear about for discriminatory purposes. Instead, ableism generally exists as a form of negligence. People without disabilities don't typically have to think things like the disabled do, and that are then therefore being neglected of their needs and their combinations. You may be questioning yourself right now, what form of ableism will it take? Well, first of all, let me clarify to you the difference between non-institutionalized and institutionalized behaviors. Let's first look at the non-institutionalized behavior. An example would be, say that a person at home isn't accessible to wheelchairs. This, however, will be technically known as being ableist. However, if a family doesn't count a person who's bound to a wheelchair among them, it's unlikely that this is the lack of access is a problem under these circumstances. Now, let's look at it from an institutionalized behavior on the other hand. What if the building, say, was a public building or a business that you're attending to? As we know that many buildings have certain accesses, but not quite. But gotta remember though, with some of the public building or businesses in these cases, people with wheelchairs won't be able to access certain facilities inside the building in itself, and not including maybe some ramps or similar options for the disabled individuals to access these buildings. Owners of these buildings are discriminating against them. If the building in question is a public courthouse or clerk office, this form of discrimination is doubly problematic, as excluded individuals are being denied the same rights to access the building as everyone else does. So this quickly ends the second part of ableism. Smash like if you like this, comment below. Comment below if you've heard of the term ableism, or if you've dealt with ableism, how did you go about it and whatnot. I would love to hear some of your guys' stories right now, because obviously I want to, like I say, spread awareness and understanding on this particular topic, especially because obviously, as I said, this is not being talked about much in the media and all that. So hopefully in saying this, it'll bring out some understanding. The next one I'm hoping to bring out is this third part, which is the history of ableism, as well as also maybe like fourth or fifth part would be about the autism and ableism in like Walt Disney movies and whatnot. Mental health and ableism, or ableism of the mind, however, which will be under it. And then the last but not least, how to prevent ableism. So no further ado guys, thanks for support, thanks for watching, do what love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, I'll see you again soon. Ciao for now.